I'm coming! Grant?
Robert, look, I'm sorry to disturb you at this hour of the morning, but something's come up.
Well, come in, please.
Please.
I don't think we've had the pleasure.
Robert, this is Mrs. Porchenko.
Porchenko, as in?
Yes. She's the wife of my old professor from back in the motherland.
Well, you'll have to pardon me, Mrs. Porchenko, if I say that you're the last person in the world I expected Grant to bring over for breakfast.
I'm afraid that this is anything but a social call.
I guess that. What's up?
Mrs. Porchenko has a problem, a big one, and she needs your help fast. Shall I? Mrs. Porchenko and her husband were in the U.S. to take part in a sort of a medical Olympia that's being held in New York City. He is, as you know, a doctor, and she's a medical researcher. Anyway, they were upstate yesterday taking a tour of some of the facilities.
And something happened.
Yeah. The first step in their defection. Both she and her husband had wanted to leave the motherland for some time. They planned to make their move during this trip.
How did they manage to get in touch with you?
Well, Dr. Porchenko knew where he could reach me because he was contacted last year about verifying my medical credentials.
Which he refused to do.
Yes, he did refuse.
He would not lift a finger in your behalf, yet now he doesn't hesitate to ask you for your help.
It is true, Mrs. Andrews. My husband did not comply with Grant's request, but not because he did not want to.
Meaning what?
He could not.
Why?
The DVX?
Yes.
That's what I figured.
They forbade it. We both were most upset, but what could we do?
Please, go on.
I slipped away from the medical group in Cooperstown. My husband, how do you say it, covered for me. We hoped that they wouldn't miss me until the bus arrived in New York City.
But by now, the DVX must know that you've defected.
I think not. My husband was going to pretend that I unwillingly separated from my group. He was going to appear very upset about my disappearance, claiming that I was lost in a strange land.
Well, it might fool them, but not for very long.
That's why we're here.
Please, Commissioner Scorpio, will you help me?
To do what?
Save my husband.
We're going to New York City tonight, Robert. We want to get Dr. Porchenko out of there before the DVX begins to suspect that he, too, may be planning to defect.
He'll need to be placed in a heavy guard.
That's what I thought. That's where you come in. What do you say?
You don't bring me the easy ones, do you?
The easy ones I can handle by myself.
Neither of you should be handling this. Surely this is a job for the WSB.
Maybe. Maybe not.
You two can't seriously be thinking of going through with this.
Why should the WSB have all the fun? We can't be too careful.
I don't believe that Dr. Porchenko would try to hurt me.
DVX controlled him once before. What's to say they're not doing it again?
I suppose you're right.
Or Mrs. Porchenko could be telling the truth.
How do we find that out? We don't have much time.
I can run a check on her story through the computer, and I won't guarantee us anything, except maybe to ascertain whether she's up to anything else aside from defecting.
Like, trying to set me up?
I wouldn't put it past the DVX, man, would you?
No. No, I wouldn't, and yet I can't imagine Dr. Porchenko involved in anything like that.
Let me run it through the computer, and then we'll work out a game plan.
Good.
I'm sorry, Mrs. Porchenko. I was so wrapped up in your story, I forgot about being a good hostess. Maybe you'd like to freshen up or rest for a while in our guest room. You must be exhausted.
It's very kind of you. I am tired. I hardly slept at all last night.
Yes, I can imagine. Why don't you come with me?
Yeah, I do care more.
Am I interrupting something?
Nothing important, Robert. No. What's the story?
Mrs. Porchenko's story checks out.
I knew that it would.
She's telling the truth as far as we know.
And how far is that?
Well, if you mean like what's going on in her or her husband's head, is that what you're asking?
Yes, and we won't know that until it's too late.
Robert, I was wondering, couldn't the man in New York be an imposter, an agent sent by the DVX to act as a spy?
It's possible.
Well, how would we know the difference?
I'm counting on the fact that Grant would. I mean, you can identify Porchenko.
Of course.
Beyond a doubt?
Without question. He was the closest friend I had in the motherland.
Let's hope he still is.
Well, the only way to find that out is to go in and get him.
Right.
So what's the plan?
We fly to New York and meet the man. If it's the real Porchenko, we help him defect.
And if it isn't?
He does live in New York City.
So, what exactly are the arrangements you have with your husband to meet him? I mean, do you have a place set up?
We arranged to meet at a restaurant at 8 o'clock this evening.
So he's expecting you.
Well, yes, of course. He does not know anyone else, except for Grant.
Grant's going to have to do.
What do you mean?
I do not understand.
We can't take it with us.
No, I suppose not.
Much too dangerous.
Mrs. Porchenko, the commissioner is right. It's going to be much safer for you to stay here in Port Charles.
I would like to be with you when you rescue my husband, but I do understand your concern. Very well. I shall remain here.
Good. Now, the question is where?
Well, couldn't she stay here with Holly? I don't mean to impose.
Oh, that's all right.
Holly won't be here.
Oh?
I'm taking her with us, and Celia too.
Oh, I was hoping you would.
Me? Excuse me, but why them and not me?
Well, the DVX will be looking for you, Mrs. Porchenko, not Celia or Holly. Now, if we have our wives with us, it just looks as if we're having a nice little casual weekend in the city.
What a splendid idea.
Let's have the DVX buy it.
Yes, but what do we do with Mrs. Porchenko? We can't just stash her in the gatehouse. If they do come to Port Charles looking for her, that's going to be the first place the DVX would check.
Isn't there somewhere we can leave her?
I'm so sorry to be so much trouble.
No, wait just a second. Why don't we check her into General Hospital?
What as, Mrs. Porchenko defected?
No, we'll check her in as Jane Doe, amnesia victim.
That's not bad at all.
Where could she possibly be safer?
All right, we'll need to bring Steve Hardy in on this. We'll need his help to set it up. You reckon you can pull it off?
For my husband and my freedom, I can do anything.
Ah, there you are, Commissioner. I've been expecting you. Hello, Brent.
Hello, Steve.
So this is the unfortunate woman,
Yeah, she's a victim in a case I'm investigating.
and you know nothing about it.
Nothing. We just found her like this. Grant examined her.
And?
Well, it was just a tentative diagnosis, Steve, but it seemed to be a pretty clear case of amnesia. Probably brought on by the blow she received to the head.
I see. You found no identification on her?
Not a thing. Whoever hit her also cleaned out her purse.
I'll have to admit the patient is Jane Doe. I started the procedure right after you called me. I'll assign a neurologist to her. Probably Dr. Jones.
I want to thank you for this, Steve. I'm sorry to spring this on at the last minute.
Don't apologize. This is a hospital. That's what we're here for. Well, I better see about arranging to move her upstairs. Excuse me.
Well, I'd say that you and Dr. Hardy both played that beautifully. Keep it up.
We'd better let Anthony in on this, on who Mrs. Porchenko really is, before we leave for New York.
It's a good idea, since he's going to be the one treating her.
I haven't had an adventure in ages.
You don't have anything else?
Still, I'm glad you're letting me in on this one.
One condition.
I hate it when you say that.
Take it or leave it.
What's the condition?
You do exactly as I say.
Oh, is that all?
Isn't that enough?
Oh, that's easy. I'll do exactly as you say, darling. Within reason.
Beginning to think I should have applied more conditions to this adventure.
Oh, it's going to be such fun, you'll see. But I wonder where Grant and Celia are. The limber's outside to take us to the airport, and then it's off to New York and Dr. Porchenko.
Oh, sorry we're late.
Hi. We had to let the Quartermains know that we were off to New York for the weekend.
What was the reason you gave them for going?
Grant and I are taking a little holiday with you two.
Any questions?
No, but what are we going to tell them if we come back tomorrow?
Don't worry about that tomorrow.
We can always say we got bored.
Not much chance of that on this trip.
Let's hope all we get is bored.
And Dr. Porchenko.
Right. Now, everybody, Celia, Holly, Drill, listen. You two are going solely as our cover, nothing else. Is that clear?
Yes, Coach.
I mean it.
What do you think I'm going to do?
I don't want to think about that. Now, the object of this little excursion is not to see how much excitement we can have. We simply want to make contact with Dr. Porchenko and establish two facts. One, that he is the real Dr. Porchenko, and two, that his desire to defect is sincere.
You're still worried about a trick?
Yeah, and I will be too till we get him safely back to Port Charles. Now, if he meets both of these qualifications, we get him out of there quickly and quietly. Any questions?
None here?
All right, now it's quite possible we're going to have a little encounter with the DVX, especially if they've discovered Mrs. Porchenko is missing. They may assume that she's defected. Everybody stay on your toes. I don't want any heroes, just team players. Agreed?
Agreed.
Well, I can hardly wait.
I can.
Are you not excited?
Worried is more like it.
You'll feel better once we're underway.
I'll feel better when it's all over.
Ladies and gentlemen, our limo awaits. We have a dinner engagement with one Dr. Porchenko.